We had not one, but three Republican responses to the President's State of the Union. It seems like the Republicans just can't agree on a unified message. The GOP has, well, it probably has a great shot at taking the White House in 2016, but can it do it with this whole fragmentation that we're seeing of the party? Would they ruin the chances? It looks like they might. We're going to get an answer now because we're joined by former Republican New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson for more on this. I'm glad you dropped in with us here.
Charles, thanks.
What's going on? I mean, you had so many different responses from one political party to the President's State of the Union address. Isn't there a certain absurdity about that?
Well, all three have a common thread, and that common thread is that they're anti-abortion, they're against marriage equality, and they want to build a fence across the border. I mean, meaning they're really anti-immigration. And as long as all three of those factions have those positions, I think Republicans remain out to lunch. Look, a lot of Republicans have a social conservative agenda, but really don't want to see that implemented in government policy. Those three viewpoints that were expressed the other day all contain the elements of being conservative,
right?
And conservative from a social standpoint.
Right.
Look, I think most Republicans are fiscally conservative, really conservative.
You think most Americans are fiscally conservative.
Absolutely.
Right.
But I think most Americans are also liberal when it comes to civil liberties.
Well, there's no doubt that the tide has changed, and the low-hanging fruit is the terrible economy. I mean,
yes.
What's the deal?
Yes, come on, stop the spending.
The terrible economy.
Stop the spending. There's going to be ramifications of printing as much money as we've printed. I believe that there's going to be inflation. I believe that the only thing that we can do to fix this is really to bring austerity to government.
But it's interesting to your point. I don't know if you saw the GDP numbers out this morning for the last quarter. Government spending down more than 12%, and the economy grew over 3%. We saw consumers step up to the plate. We saw businesses step up to the plate. That helps to prove the point that you're trying to make here.
Well, just from a common sense standpoint, don't you have? Look, I did not vote for Ronald Reagan the second time he ran. I voted for the Libertarian because he ran up record deficits.
But you've always run as a Republican, though.
Well, I have, but I think I'm like most Americans. I vote for the person. I don't vote for the party, and I'm concerned about dollars and cents. I'm concerned about government spending. I always have been my entire life.
The other thing
but my first vote was for McGovern. I was opposed to the war.
Okay, well, that's interesting. But here's where we are right now. And that is we've got really slow economic growth. That GDP growth that you've cited, I think, is even after the revisions that added all sorts of intellectual property on the balance sheet of the U.S. last summer.
Right.
But, here's the thing. I mean, Americans, I think, want to be optimistic. We don't have we want people who are forward-looking and optimistic. Optimism is a force multiplier, not this finger-waggy scolding that's going on that's in the backbiting, right?
Completely agree.
So before we let you go, if we had a checklist, if you could say to your Republican colleagues and friends, hey, guys, these are the things you need to stop talking about. Would you say get out of the people's bedrooms, don't impose your religious beliefs on others,
don't build a fence across the war, and then really concentrate on spending, because that is what you have control over. Yeah. And stay tough on reducing spending.
Now,
and that isn't to say to drop social safety nets. I mean, look, I think there are those that are truly in need in this country, but I think we've drawn the lines. We've gone way overboard with regard to those truly in need, and that needs to be scaled back.
Back to the original premise, we had three responses, and not including, a libertarian response. So maybe four different factions of the Republican Party. Is there any way they can actually win the White House this divided?
Well, if the Republican Party will open themselves up to an honest debate over where Republicans really are, I think Republicans can emerge. But if they're going to stick to a social agenda that's anti-abortion, which is women's rights, if they're going to stick to no marriage equality, if they're going to stick to building a fence across the border, I think that's crossways with most Americans.
I'm getting the rap signal. You're starting to resurface here a little bit. What about you running? Real quick, just thinking about it?
Well, I'm a voice that's not out there. I'm that fourth voice, which I happen to think is representative of most Americans.
Governor Johnson, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.